But tonight we're going to talk about not only Bilderberg, but we're going to talk with Mike also about the G7 and others. Mike from around the world. Are you there, Mike?
Right here, Pastor Paul. God bless you.
Okay, I'm turning you up. I am turning you up right now.
All right.
I think that's
Make
better.
sure I'm adjusted right here. Okay. As good as I can get it.
That sounds good. Sounds really, really good. Great to have you here tonight, Mike. Looks like about 6,000 people are here. So
Good to be here.
No, the more on the way. How you doing tonight?
Good to be here. Well, busy, naturally.
Yeah, okay. So I throw something at you without even asking, but I seen that tonight. It's ironic that tonight is the beginning of the 69th annual secret Bilderberg meetings, and I've got a list of all 136 people attending, and it's also the beginning tonight of the G7 summit in Hiroshima. Interesting, it's in Hiroshima when we're talking nuclear war almost every day between Russia and Ukraine. So what is your thoughts on these world entities getting together now? The world elitist really is who, this is invitation only. You can't go to Bilderberg. I didn't get a ticket. Did you get a ticket, Mike? I didn't get one.
No, I didn't get a ticket.
Okay. But what goes on there, Mike? And what's going on here with these meetings?
Well, the Bilderberg meeting, they decide a future. Every time they have a Bilderberg meeting, every single part of their agenda, they've never failed to meet that quota. In other words, they set policy and standard for the future. And so we're at a crossroads. They know we have a few things coming up. They know that the populace is not as malleable as they want them to be. And they have to make some moves. King Charles is finally king. And so things that need to be, anointed, so to speak, they will anoint in their weird way. And so get ready for things to escalate and go a lot faster.
So Charles, in your opinion, and we talked about this some last night, I did with Melvin, we talked about how that in the book of Daniel, it talks about this king with fierce countenance will stand up, and he'll be mighty, but not by his own power, and that he'll prosper, and craft will prosper, and he will hurt a lot of people with his policies, and start wondering about King Charles. And I'm not saying for sure he's who that scripture's talking about, but we are in the 75th year of Israel's a nation. We're definitely in prophecy times. I mean,
we are.
And so when you say that King Charles, the world's got to get. There's certain things they've been waiting on, haven't they, for King Charles to get in position?
Yeah, I think that it's a good idea to realize that people like their procedures, right? Their checklist of things. And when you're talking about a king that's now on earth for the Western side of things, especially that place, that is the head of the free world. They call that the head of the free world, not necessarily America. America's enforcement of the free world, but they are the head of the free world. And so now that they have a royal person there, the dragon, they call him the dragon. I heard reference of that a few times already. The dragon is in his seat, so they say. But we're going to see a lot of things go forward because they follow an agenda. A lot of Christians may not understand this, but the same way somebody would go into a church, right, and yield authority and be respectful and all those things and follow the procedures of that church, so do they follow a procedure when they do their little, meetings and things of that nature. They take it very seriously. Everything is meticulous. And they believe in what they believe in, and they make things happen that way. In corporate America, well, let's just go ahead and say the corporate world, period, they control the money aspect of things, and they decide if a war is going to be funded or not, if a war is going to continue or not. That nuclear question will come up. Most of this, if I'm correct, this Bilderberg meeting is going to be about a global strategy for they're either going all in to absorb Russia and China, and I do mean absorb them, or they're going to go ahead and put into play something that they have been working on for a very long time. This could be that moment. They needed a little shaking in the world. People are displaced. People are looking for a leader. See, Christians had this right back in 2013. You remember when they said that a lot of people said, the beast would come on the scene when people would get to a position where they would want a leader to get them out of these messes, right? Well, that's exactly what we have right now. And what are people doing? They're not calling on the Lord necessarily. They're saying we need, we need this guy to lead us or that guy to lead us. And it's critical. That's the way the world thinks. And so here we are. So I can almost guarantee you they're going to fit their components in the world, and people will begin to see that happen.
There's some key players that I have the list here, Mike, of who's there, and I went through earlier tonight, just read some of the more notable ones that maybe, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI.
Yeah.
You've got the CEO of Pfizer there. You've got the president of the World Economic Forum there. You've got the president of Google there.
Yep.
You've got the director of Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, Jen Easterly of the United States there.
Yep.
And you have the senior director for Technology and National Security and National Security Council, Turan Chabura there. I mean, these are big intelligence leaders here in America, and they're in Bilderberg in what's called a secret meeting.
That's right. These are the guys that they constitute the reformation of the system topside, and so a new system people are about to see. Just in case everybody missed it, the world is hurting right now. It's there's no real security, although people are working, right? The populace is working. Global securities are under threat. We have cybersecurity. That's a big issue right now. We have power grids under threat. We have very new threats. They need a governing body around AI. They need that immediately because AI has already been launched. They have new communications protocols. They have the bracelets or let's just say the finalized identification of all civilians. They have to have that. They have a new banner that everybody will be under.
Well, wait. I know. I've heard you use this word bracelets, and then I've heard you use the word tag. We've all been tagged.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Well, that means absolute accountability of people. They have to take passwords and all that stuff out of the system. They're taking it out of the system. They need to have cybersecurity is important in this way. A lot of people, they may think it's for protection of their information, this, that, and the other. That's fine. They can think that. But in truth, it's absolute accountability of each and every individual. In other words, the system has been set up so that every single human being is a component of that system, which means if you don't exist in the system, and this can happen right now, if you don't exist in that system, you could be taken out in 5 seconds, right? You could be. If you're not tagged, the drone in that drone highway right above your heads, you could be taken out in an instant.
Whoa, wait! You mean, so in other words, the tag is not just only to keep track of you, but it's to ensure that you don't get zapped because you're.
Well, think of it. We have AI, Paul, right? We have artificial intelligence, which is actually like going to be the main operator behind all of this this new system. But if everybody is tagged, which they are, right, then they can walk around in safety. There's total absolute accountability. If somebody is not tagged, suppose somebody gets thrown out of the system, they're an enemy of the state or something in that region, all they have to do is deny that tag, right? If a person goes out there tagless, all the drones, they have drone patrols, on a continuous basis now, right? That's all they have to do. Those drones know who's tagged and who's not. They know this right now. And if somebody is not tagged, they got you. You're going to stick out like a big light bulb, right? Very dark place, and they're going to get you. So with terrorism, with all these different things that we face right now, terrorists can easily hide amongst the population to a degree. But in this new system, if you're not tagged, you're dead. Basically, you're going to die.
So they're going.
It's as simple as that.
So they're going to force us to become identification registry. Okay, and that's in the Obamacare bill, by the way. Back when they passed it in 2010, it said that it would be required that all American citizens would have to have some type of identification. It didn't say tag. It didn't say. It did mention chip in it, and then I think they changed that wording. It did first say RFID identification registry chip, but I think they might have changed that to some other type of tag. So you're saying is every American will get a tag, but if you don't follow, let's just say you don't follow the social criteria of the country, your tag could get turned off, right? I mean,
That's right. That's
and
right.
Then the drones that are flying over everybody's head,
they'll automatically know,
hunt you down and then zap you, and you're dead.
And in fact, the system is so responsive that if a person is not in that system, right? Even right now, if a person is not in the system right now, just with facial identification, bone tags that people have, in other words, say through optics and all sorts of cameras and everything else, a person has trillions of points, identification points on their body. If they know who you are already, that's no mystery. But if they catch somebody who's not in the system, right, they stick out like a big beacon anywhere they go. So the system is very good at telling everybody who's not in the system. And plus with AI, with the new 10G systems coming out, with all the machines talking to each other, every device in the world will know that a person is an outcast. And it reminds me of Revelation when it says that the beast would kill as many as would not worship it.
Yeah.
Right? It would have power to kill.
That.
It would have that power to kill, that the beast gave the image to the beast, power to kill anybody who would not worship it. So it will know who's part of it and who's not. And this is already it's sad to say this is already worldwide.
Are they talking about that, do you think, this weekend in Bilderberg? Will this get brought up with these AI?
Well, AI is going to be an integrated topic in all their planned discussions. Normally they talk in their agendas. They have industrial policy and trade is always part of the securities threats, U.S. leadership, all this good stuff they talk about. AI is going to be integrated into all of them because AI is part of every single organization out there now. So, and if you notice, they are constantly having discussions about some sort of regulatory group for AI. They have Microsoft on board. Google is on board. Everybody's on board with this. They want this regulatory group so they can appoint in-house corporate individuals, right? Oversight of AI, so no one can sneak in any type of AI code or some kind of code or some device that would actually inhibit or prohibit this AI system from its expansive reach. This thing, once it's once they take the cap off of this, they're not going to put the cap back.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
How close, Mike, are we to the? Do they have a definitive date when they want to begin rolling this out and implementing this?
Well, they have public information, right? But then there's what they're really doing. And right. To be truthful, it's already out there. It's already out there. It's already out there. They have education packs, or let's just say a special network, right? If they were to enable that network, the AI that's out there would begin to mature and probably would be done, full maturity in about 10 days, maybe less, because it's given the AI grows by information, right? So it has to have a lot of storage space, and the USA is ready for it. Europe is ready for it. Everybody's ready for it. Everybody has set up the machinery, the infrastructure network for all of this. All the machines are connected, right? All they have to do is allow it to use the memory. once it starts using the memory, it already has access to all social media, all psychological profiles, all history that everybody has put together. When Obama came into office, they had a mandate for the Brain Initiative, right? Brain Initiative. And when they had that Brain Initiative, that's also the exact same time the identification factor had to come in also. So when they did this, when they had the Brain Initiative, when they had the identification protocols that they put into place, those two, that was actually a NATO mandate for all of NATO, all the countries, all the allies of the West, and they worked on it since then. They have two massive computer systems that I believe they're 4 quantum computers, right? So they're already processing all this information. They have successfully replicated the human brain multiple times. They have 2 conscious machines, which means it now, for a machine to be self-aware, right? That's based upon the observer only, right? You really can't say a machine is self-aware or it's not self-aware. That's based upon, if it gives answers that we expect a self-aware entity to give, then so be it. That's how they have to do it that way, because there's no real checklist for that. Anyway, they've already done this. It's already done. The money has already been poured into it, right? Ask yourself this: why in the world would they continue to give about $1 trillion a year to the Ukraine when we're strapped for money already? When we have a debt ceiling we can't handle? Why would they sit there and fund all these different operations? Oh, that's not all. Remember when we were missing $23 trillion? That's been a trend we're still missing.
23 trillion just went away. That's like, where'd that go? Well, we don't know. We lost.
We still have that. Yep, that's the black budget. And so these guys, nobody can ever question the black budget. Nobody will ever question the black budget because they don't have clearance to even ask about it. No president has clearance. Nobody has clearance to do that. No. And if they press too far, they're going to go missing too.
So, Mike, this system, AI, it's not AI's. When you use the word AI, that covers everything. I mean, that's involved in everything. But this specific identification system, this tag, they're close to making it official to where if you don't have it, you can't buy or sell, or you can't participate in society. You are you're on the run, basically.
Well, Pastor, here's the way to test it. Anybody can test it this way. You ready?
I'm ready.
If you don't have some sort of if you find a child with no social media account, right? With only no school ID, no ID period, right? That kid does not exist. That kid is in the hands of the state. That kid does not exist. That kid is not going to be able to be checked in the system. He's going to be flagged. As soon as you mention his name, no license, no bank account, no anything. They're going to have problems getting a social security number and everything.
Yeah, okay.
All of it's not there yet. It's going to be locked up until whoever this kid is gets active on the internet, right? Once you're active on the internet, then you're in there, right? Because every social media site, every gaming site, everything is unified right now. Everything is unified. And so it's a shame to say that, because when it comes to a turnkey system, which is what they have developed, they don't need months to put this into play. If they made a decision tomorrow, that turnkey system would be in operation.
So the system,
and everybody would be processed.
Okay, so now the system is very close to being implemented because we've got so much data on everybody. What's going to separate it from what? There's going to be some determining factors, because they've already been playing with this deplatforming. They've been playing with this cancel culture mentality, woke agenda. We're hearing hate speech. We're hearing all those dangerous
loyalty.
The MAGA, ultra MAGA people, the conservative Christians are, dangerous individuals. We're hearing all these labels and titles, but at some point, that's going to be the rubber meets the road, where you have to either start fresh and follow the rules, or you're in trouble. When do you see that? Is that is that going to happen in 2030? Is that going to happen before that? We're talking 2028, 2025.
let me raise another issue. It's a
Okay.
real issue.
Okay.
For the last, for a long time, they've tracked, everybody knows about the moon, how it controls our tides, right?
Yeah.
There's a problem with the moon, and that problem is getting worse. They expect, by 2030, but in about 5 years, right? They expect sea levels to be up at least 3.5 feet, guaranteed in 5 years. You know what that means? That means Florida's what, 100 feet above. Parts of Florida are maxed out at 100 feet above sea level.
Yeah, about 100. Yeah.
Texas, right? That 2.5 feet rise in all the ocean, right? This is bare minimum, Pastor Paul. So let me just say this first. And all of that, not because of glaciers, not because of weather, but because of the moon, right? Something is altering. Something is causing the moon to be oblong in its orbit, which means it's going to have large tidal pulls. And then when it goes back out again, it's going to displace water big time, right? The moon controls the tides, period. Every time it goes around, it pulls. That gravity of the moon pulls, right, on the waters. So it pulls it up low tide, lets it go high tide, right? Well, if the orbit of the moon changes, we can actually see that through a slight change in the moon, which is what's happening right now, we probably will see a 2.5 foot rise in ocean levels universally. That means all over the earth. They're saying less than 5 years, but the actual data points to probably about a 1.5 year period. So that's 1.5 years, right? Not 2 years, not 30 years, 1.5 years. But then we have this warming issue problem. The moon will also affect warming because it will change the way radiation is reflected off of the Earth.
Okay.
As its orbit is already moving away from us at so many centimeters per year, right? The moon is moving away. But this oblong orbit, that with the axis change of the Earth, will raise global temperatures about 1.2 degrees Celsius. All of this will happen in less than 2 years, right? So sometime in between that 2 year period, if everything was that stable, in a 2 year period, we'll see these changes, which would absolutely devastate every single coastline. But we have another problem. Water erosion has taken its toll in Texas, all up and down the East Coast, all up and down the West Coast, right? Until you have sinking cities. Sinkholes are starting to, they're watching, the Army Corps of Engineers is watching an area. I can't tell you which one it is, but it's an entire state on the East Coast right now, the entire state. And the reason why is all of this rain has washed away the rock layer underneath, right? It exposed the sandstone and kind of forced it out. Salt water came in its place, which is eroding some of the soils underneath there, right? So it's already dropped a foot in 1 year. 1 year, it dropped an entire foot in 1 year. In another place, now you're looking at this entire state on the East Coast is in trouble. They're trying their best to find some sort of solution, but they just may have to evacuate the place, right? The entire place here very soon, especially with some of the water inundation that we're about to see, some of the saltwater intrusion. All the fresh water, there's another report talking about the fresh water. We're not going to have fresh water in a very short time, right? And you have all these changes taking effect. And so it's not surprising they have rushed their meeting times. And some of these agendas, they have pushed them forward. It's going to give them a catalyst to go ahead and implement quite a few things because you're looking at a displacement event.
Yeah, so what you're saying is the water, the rising of the sea levels is not based on the melting of the solar caps.
No.
It's based on the moon being dislodged out of its orbit.
That's right.
Apparently then creating a more stronger tidal higher tide on different parts of the Earth.
That's right.
And that's
that's right. But that's an isolated issue because when you start looking at what's really happening, right? That you have to add the weather into it. You have to add some of the other factors into it.
Right.
But if we only had the problem with the moon, we're still in trouble, right? So this issue is unavoidable. Is what I'm saying. It's unavoidable.
So this,
In California, there's an entire city in California that also it went down into the ground 16 inches in less than 1 year in
what?
California. And they're not, these reports are not, they're not readily available to the public. This is something that people have to track to see, but it's out there. In other words, you can get your hands on it, but they're not going to advertise it to you because
No.
it's not going to
Well,
be received.
it's going to
very
create
well,
a panic
right?
if you
Right.
started saying that. Right.
Mexico has a problem. Mexico has that same issue, right? In fact, they're purposely starting to empty out Mexico. This Mexico City is in trouble big time. They're in trouble big time. So we have quite a few changes that will likely not take. It's not going to take a long time for these things to go into effect, right? They're already happening. They're already in motion, and people already know this, right? And the governments of the world, they know this, so they're going to rush everything, right, to meet these happenings. And when this happens, they'll have no problem telling people, hey, you want to be a part of this new society in safe places. We have all the data, this, that, and the other. We have to have your loyalty. You
Right.
cannot be of this ideology or this ideology. You're going to have to be of a specific ideology. And if you're not, you're just not going to be a part of the system. And that's easy to get people in that way because people are going to be worn out. We're going to see some major transitions in a very short time. And when people are worn out that way, right, then people are going to ask, what do you have for us? They're going to give up a lot of people will give up their own personal fights. They won't fight anymore.
Right.
People right now, they're already tired. People are getting worn out by events that have not amounted to anything yet, right? But for the most part, people have been exposed to a political war, and it has really tired them out. So imagine when life is actually lost, when entire states are rearranged, right? When all these things actually go into motion. And this doesn't even, we haven't even started talking about the troubles in the heavens, which will likely speed up and magnify some of the effects upon the earth.
When you bring this stuff forward, you start in your mind starts racing. You start thinking, okay, so that means for the last 50 to 60 years, all these building underground cities in preparation for the apocalypse. And in conjunction with that is all this advanced technology to identify and tag people. And then also this aggressive change of culture, what's acceptable culture and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things have all been simultaneously being rushed and forced upon the populace, especially around the world, America, Europe for sure, and around the world.
Yes, sir.
And I think some parts of the world may be already considered expendable.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yep. You sure are.
So you figure
you see it.
You figure United States and Europe and some of those and parts of Asia are going to be part of the survival crowd. And you can see other parts of the world that don't seem to be getting invited to the party. They're never at any of these big meetings. They're not really part of the party, and so they're probably left out. And then I would say even here in America and Europe that there's a certain ideology crowd, and I'm probably in that crowd, that they could view as he's not worth it. He's a problem. He's still he's clinging to his God and his guns and in the gospel, and we just can't deal with that. So there's going to be some gleaning and some weeding out, don't you think, Mike? It's going to be going on.
Oh yeah. It's already happening. Before you identify anybody, right, you create a scenario in which people with ideologies you don't like will start to voice their opinion. That's the first stage in a filter. When you start to filter civilians, that's the first stage. You have to create a set of events where these people with these ideologies start to speak up. Well, so long as those who love the Lord continue to tell the truth and stand on the side of righteousness, they're going to voice, their position very strongly. And Christianity is going to become one of the most unattractive conversations in the earth. That's happening at light speed. That's happening so quick. It is kind of,
it's
that's
unbelievable.
spooky, but it's happening.
We were doing some research for the book that I got coming out in February, and I was talking to my co-author, and we were talking about this very thing that if you read the Communist Manifesto from 1848, the four things, the four big agendas. I'll just read them to you. Number one, eliminate Christianity. Has to be done. Number two, eliminate Christian family units. That's a major problem. Number three, stop all patriotism.
Yeah.
And number four, stop all nationalism.
Yep.
There's no such thing as worrying
Sure.
about, the countries don't matter no more. So these four things have to be established for this new world to exist. And of course, I don't know if they knew about the impending doom of the planet with the incoming asteroids and the planet X and the gravitational pull. They probably did. Probably had some inkling of an idea.
They had the documents. They knew about the documents, Pastor Paul, fairly early, right? But they're just they've gotten to a point where they have actually proven them. They see things in the heavens right now. They have eyes on several things in the heavens right now. They spend trillions of dollars to continue to track things. Why would a person send up trillions of dollars in satellites that do nothing but look out into space, that does nothing for us here on Earth? In truth, they do nothing for us here on Earth. They don't help scientists understand things. They're observing things. They come out with these stories ever so often saying, oh, yes, we have, through our observation of this gas galaxy, we now know that cows do not exist at the center of the universe. They come up with these strange things that do not, they don't enhance life here. And yet they continue to spend the money. Why would you do that? So that you can watch, so that you can have your timing right. Because timing is of the essence. They do understand that as soon as you see the illumination from these exterior bodies, right? Once you see it, it's too late. Once everybody can see it with their own eyes, you're going to have the effects within 24 hours. They understand this. And so they're going to watch everything. That it is critical. They have the timing right and everything else. So get ready for them to shake everything up my way of faith through the presentation of these weird artifacts they're going to bring forward. They're going to really challenge everybody at their core
belief. So how close are we? If all these things are moving as quickly as you're saying they are, and I believe they are, how are they discussing who the man is they want to rule this world? Is there discussions going on at Bilderberg or Bohemian Grove or Skull and Bones or some of these secret groups, world leaders? Is discussion already taking place to identify that person who might be embraced by the majority of the people that they could trust and count on? Do you think that's being discussed?
Pastor, I've gotten a hint.
Okay.
Of there's someone who does exist, right? And everybody's frightened of this person. Now, this person, whoever this individual is, they never use a name, but they're always nervous. You always hear rumors that he has, or whatever it is, he has called again. He has some declaration. If he tells them to go spend $20 billion, they'll do it. That goes for any corporation, anybody. So who in the world is this figure? This figure keeps coming up. And we're talking about not only in the U.S., but overseas, right?
Right.
The same figure keeps coming up. So whoever it is, he's already established, right? I did hear someone say that he owns everything anyway. They said everything. They emphasized everything. And it's almost like despair when they hear something from this individual or they get one of these directives. Everything changes within them. Doesn't matter who they are, right? Everything changes. They know it. They have to do it, whatever it is. So whether that be a some sort of power this guy's exercising over them, because, hey, let's go ahead and face it. Most of these rich guys, at least twice a month, they put on their robes and their little, priestly garments or whatever they do, and they start doing their thing. A lot of Christians, it'd be awesome if Christians knew that they absolutely believe in dark forces, right? They absolutely serve them. And but these guys do that, and they're doing it more and more. But for some reason, now it's almost like they yield to this one figure that keeps popping up.
One is starting to rise among them, you're saying.
Yeah.
So,
and no one will say no.
So there's an inner circle Let's say that. Let's say there's this inner circle of very powerful men, extremely wealthy, all of them, which that brings power with it. And they're involved in these occult type practices, meetings.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
no
right.
doubt about it. And what among them has started to emerge as the more spiritually superior, more intellectually superior? Is that what you're saying is starting? There's rumors that that's starting to happen.
Yeah, and evidently this person owns everything, right?
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, that is crazy. But in a world system, now, if you think about it, everything that we live by, except for our faith, is man-made. So if they wanted to, they could appoint everything to be owned by one
Yeah,
person.
they
We
could.
live under a system. We live under a system that we believe is real, right?
Yeah.
The truth is, there's another system. This system that we utilize from day to day is built upon, right? And they're going to show us that our system has folded up and just fallen away.
You know,
And then we're going to have no choice but to accept the new one. Because if a person wants to eat, if they want to continue to have a driver's license,
yeah,
if they want to continue to have a bank account,
yeah,
they're going to have to be part of that new system.
yeah.
If they're not a part of that new system, well, then they're going to be, then what?
Yeah,
It's going to be a trying time.
so that shows you that we're coming to this very test. There's an old song they used to sing called "Testing Times Are Just Ahead for the
Yeah,
Children of the King." These were back in the mountains, okay?
yeah,
And they would
yeah,
sing this song. They would line it out, and I used to hear them. It says, but basically, this testing time that's coming is coming sooner than any of us want to believe
it
are,
is.
are willing
It
to
is.
even want to accept. So we're going to
It
have to
is.
really preach to our people to strengthen their faith. I know a lot of folks want to get raptured out of here early. We don't know how far we got to go before the Lord comes. So we don't want to depend on something that we don't really know. We better depend on our faith on how we
Amen.
will get through the testing time, because the Bible does tell us that there's a time like great sorrows and woes like never before. It talks about Jacob's troubles. It talks about the great persecution and tribulation like the world's never seen. We can
Yeah.
read it all through the Bible. Let me ask you this question, because when you start talking about, I think there's some really, really wealthy oil kings in the Middle East. There's somebody owns BlackRock. I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah.
And that thing's tied to everything. It's almost like a web, like a spider web.
Yeah.
Whoever's sitting on top of that heap of pile. And there's some other guys, and we could name some billionaires that are hanging around, but I'm not so sure all those billionaires that we know that are in the $200 billion range. I'm thinking there's guys that have way more money than them.
Yeah, because that's public
Public
information,
knowledge. Yeah, they're
right?
characters.
One of the rules is when you want civilians to know something, the populace to know something, they do that so they can keep people within a containment area.
Yeah.
The true story they'll never mention unless you happen upon that information. But yeah, Pastor Paul, in fact, the people who are wealthy in this world, they don't use money at all. They don't have to.
No.
Right? They don't have to use money.
They use influence.
Yeah, they really honestly do not use money. Money is more like to control the inmates in a prison, right? To make them think they have status, to keep them in check is what they do oftentimes. To control people, it's a control mechanism. But there are some people, especially in the Middle East, and they have 2 cube cities going up in the Middle East.
Yep.
For example,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Do you know what those cube cities are?
Well,
in the Middle East?
one is like going to be 75, a building that's 75 miles long.
Yes, and it's already. Listen, they're not joking around with this stuff. They already started building some of the wall units that go with this. Right, one of them is, I believe, one piece is 20 miles long. One piece is 20 miles long.
20 miles.
It's loaded with titanium. It's loaded with gold. It's loaded with, all sorts of precious stuff. And they're building lots of these, right?
Yeah.
And they have, speaking of the assets to do it, they have it. The minerals to do it with, they have it. They have mines like you wouldn't believe. Saudi Arabia just uncovered some of their mining activity that the world was not privy to. These guys have a lot more than what anybody ever thought.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
Iran is going to be enriched by this. Iran will be, right? They're going to double. I guarantee you that their economic situation will double, probably about every single month. It's going to double so long as they're active with this project in the Middle East. They're also partnering up with Saudi Arabia. That's bad because now you have Jordan, you have Iran, you have Saudi Arabia, you have Turkey, right? Because NATO is ousting Turkey, right? They're against Turkey. They're not really for them. And so Israel is backed against the wall. You know what that, and to me, what that means is Israel is going to be forced to, I think they're trying to make Israel preempt some sort of strike. I think they're trying to make Israel do this. I think they're forcefully trying to make Israel attack someone so that they can go ahead and chop that relationship off. Because if you notice, the U.S. and its concentration of what it deems necessary for the future does not include Israel, right?
No,
That's almost like a backroom conversation you'd have now, right? They used to hear that at least once a week. How we need to protect Israel.
You don't hear it no more.
How we need to be.
You don't hear it no more.
And in fact, when somebody brings up Israel, you hear a lot of people start sighing. They don't want to have. It's truly everything is upside down. Everything is upside down. And so we know for those of us with faith, that time of trying, in part's already begun, right? Because I'll say this: if people can get a Christian to lose their cool, they have no chance against some of the spirits that will manifest that we're going to have to deal with.
Right.
Because if we haven't seen any spiritual assaults yet in truth, but we will, all that's going to be unfolded. This place is turning into Sodom and Gomorrah.
It really is.
Right?
I saw stuff today on television, and Heidi and I were sitting there and was watching commercials, watching a couple news articles. And she said, this is just pure perversion.
Yes, it is.
What is going on? It's their perversion. And I said, Heidi, it's the days of Lot. It's the days of Sodom.
It really is.
Let me read to you what it says in Daniel as we're talking about this power individual. And this is Daniel chapter 8, verse 23, folks. 8:23, a prophecy alert says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper, and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace he shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, which is Jesus Christ, but he shall be broken without hand. And when Daniel saw this, Daniel said, and I, Daniel, fainted, and I was sick certain days. And afterward I rose up and I did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. It sounds like, Mike, Daniel saw this world leader rising up in these last days when wickedness, transgressors had come to their full. Is that where are we just about there?
I think we are, especially with the with when they did away with the family unit.
Yeah.
And when society is now structured against the family unit, against faith, right?
Yes.
When they no longer have the institution of marriage, but now they have partners. When God named abominations, but then you have a country that parades how it's legal and acceptable and encouraged. Yeah. We have really sunk to the bottom of the bottom. These are the days, these are absolutely those days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Again, the days of Lot again. And I think part of this deep trying time on Christians is going to be so easy to forego your faith when nobody's looking, right? To be a part of this world, to befriend this world, to continue to make it in this world. And people are going to have to make some hard choices. That's precisely what a lot of people of faith don't want. They don't want to make that hard choice. right? They don't. But I guarantee you that the Lord has shown every human being out there that belongs to Him that there's something they're going to have to overcome before He gets back, because we're supposed to be getting things right within ourselves before He comes back.
Right.
He's coming back.
He's coming
and
back.
He will get His bride.
Yes.
He will get those who believe in Him.
Amen.
He's coming back, but there's some things that we have to do prior to Him getting back. And I know a lot of people want to rush it, but what if a person has not? If they have not gotten those things corrected that the Lord decreed we must get corrected before He comes back, because God allows the beast to rise. Evil can't rise without God's approval. In fact, that's God's indignation, isn't it?
Yep.
Even Israel, right? I know a lot of people think Israel can't, they're not going to undergo anything. They thought the same thing in the Holocaust.
They're
And when my
to.
grandmother, that's right. Well, my grandmother told me, though, that before the Holocaust, people were coming and saying, hey, get out of here, get out of here. So they wouldn't listen to the people who absolutely heard from the living God. They wouldn't listen. They said, no, God would never do something like that. They would never do it. But she said the true reason they stayed is because they were prosperous in their businesses.
Yeah.
Right? They had businesses there. They were not going to leave what they worked so hard to establish. But the ones that did leave, they went to every single direction they did go. Well, it's happening again.
It is.
The same thing is happening again. But this time, Pastor Paul, it's going to happen with us.
Yes.
You know, with the ones who are grafted into the branch, because it's almost like in a lot of situations, we're either going to have to give up our lavish lifestyle and have the faith, or we sidestep faith when nobody's looking, stay with the evil, appear to be good,
that's
right?
Not good.
And then be totally condemned. But that's what it's coming down to. It's so subtle. Just like that. It's so subtle.
And
just
you know,
like
Mike, that what you're saying is going to happen. And there are people who are going to choose to stay with Jesus and suffer through it and trust in God.
Yeah.
And there's others that's going to choose to not stay with Jesus, but to save their own skin, to save their own way of life, to save their own.
Yeah.
They will turn their back on God, and they will do it. And I hate to think about it, but they will do it. And they will turn on one another. It says it right there in Revelation. Just read Matthew 24. It says they will betray one another.
Yeah.
Pastor
Paul, I've seen that.
You know it's going to happen.
Seen it.
Yep.
But I'll tell you this one thing, though. One thing I found out about the Lord in my life, certainly. It's almost like God will not move until you take that step of faith. When you take that step of faith and you determine in your heart, I'm going to walk this out all the way. Right? Yep. You think it's going to be a do or die situation. That's not what it is. It's almost like God requires everything until we take that step of faith, and then He requires nothing. He becomes our strength. He finishes the act and everything. Like Abraham. He said, Abraham, give your son, right? He asked, that was everything to Abraham. But guess what? God didn't require anything from Abraham. Not one thing did He require. So if we can make that step by faith, and determine within our hearts, do or die, I'm going to do this. I'm not thinking about my own life, right? I'm going to do this out of faith for the Lord because I believe in His cause. If we do that, then what I found out is that the Lord's strength carries us all throughout the rest of that journey. That one step of faith, and then He will take those steps in us. He will. It was written that He would finish the work He began in us, and if He's going to finish it, right? All we have to do is walk by faith and truth. And not sidestepping. Because God knows there have been times in my life in the past, Paul, trying to sidestep things. Don't do that, folks. That doesn't work out too well.
No.
That doesn't work out. You're going to be beaten with many stripes, and this is the wrong time to do it. But if people would take that step of faith, they would actually have confidence in the Lord because they would know about His deliverance. And every problem a person has had, in truth, it's been to show them that God can deliver them. And a lot of people don't have experience with that.
I think there's going to be some tremendous faith rising in these next 2 years. I think you're right. I think there will be some Christians going to really surprise us. I think they're really going to rise up. There's going to be a tremendous God's grace and is sufficient. You know, when Paul would always ask that question, God said, look, my grace is sufficient. You just hang in there. I do think we're going to be surprised by some level of faith that some will have, and I think we'll also be surprised at some failures and some of the folks that will turn and walk away that will shock us. So, it's an individual thing, isn't it? But I'm not afraid of it. I mean, for some reason, I sleep real good at night. I just do. I guess when you know that your name is written in the Lamb's, I'm not in denial either. You know what I'm saying, Mike? I'm not in
Right.
denial.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I know what's coming. I know it
Yeah.
maybe as good as anybody there is. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I also know in who I have my faith and my trust in. I've
Right.
given him my whole life. I've given him my soul, my body, my strength. I just give it to him. He's in control of this. And so whether I live or whether
Amen.
I die, I belong to the Lord.
Amen. Amen.
So, Mike,
Yeah, that's
let's.
right. Because when you believe, there is no death.
Yep.
There's no death.
That's right. So going forward, as we go forward now, these next 2 years, you're anticipating significant weather changes. I take it. I mean, I just read today that in January, that hurricane we had up in the Northeast was officially called a hurricane now. It's the first time ever that a hurricane has been that far in the north in January in history. We just had the largest cyclone ever in the North Indian Ocean this year, largest one ever. So, you know, volcanoes are erupting, things are shaking, earthquakes are happening. Are we going to see an intense? Well, these waves of energy. Can you help us a little bit about on these waves of energy? What's been going on with those?
Well, Pastor Paul, they're not going to stop. They're going to increase. They're going to increase with some visual things that people will start to see in the heavens, right? And because we're going through a time,
wow,
where
Mike,
the air is not going to be so
Mike,
good.
we got breaking
Number one.
news. We got breaking news, Mike. Just now, 7.7 earthquake just hit the Loyalty Islands, southeast of the Loyalty Islands down there. That's north of New Zealand. That's real close to Tonga, I think, Mike.
Yeah, that place is Pastor Australia, right outside of Indonesia and some other places is incredibly volcanism underneath the water there is off the scale.
7.7,
It's off the
and
scale.
they're saying it's very shallow.
Yep. See,
This is not good. This could be a tsunami for sure here on this one. Do anybody live on the Loyalty Islands, or is that? I wonder about that.
Actually, yeah, they have people that live everywhere now. They have folks out there, observers, and this and the other. Yeah, they got people out there. I tell you what, Indonesia and Australia. I can't even talk about New Zealand itself, though. But Indonesia, Australia, and South America, they're in big trouble. They're in big trouble. They're in huge trouble. And Mexico is in. They're going to have a bit of a problem. They have a problem. Volcanism, Pastor Paul, people ought to get used to it. People ought to look into volcanism and learn about the ash. They have to learn about the ash before it's too late to understand what the ash actually is. Because we're going to live in an environment, Pastor Paul, where there's ash everywhere all the time, on top of cars, windows, and everything else. Two of these volcanoes that are in the Pacific Ocean, right? And they're going to start talking about the volcano they won't talk about, which is Massive. That's going to become a major topic, and I think that people will, they're going to start learning about this monster. It makes Yellowstone look like a bottle cap.
Where's it at, Mike?
It's right outside. It's in the Pacific Ocean, right?
Yeah.
If you go right outside of Japan, there it is. And like I said before, these island nations, they're going to start talking about, people will hear it. If people are alive today, they'll likely hear about evacuations of entire islands like Japan. Right, I don't think Japan will make it. They're not going. How can they make it? But
wow,
we're looking at major losses coming up. Now, it sounds impossible now, but when it happens, Pastor Paul, right? When it actually takes place, when that monster wakes up, that's just not going to be good. It's one there. It's one in the right there where Italy is and Greece is. Right, that's a huge mouth underneath there, by the way. And then we have one by Australia, but Massive is one of the biggest ones in the solar system. It is huge. It is huge. Only naval personnel and NOAA personnel by escort of the Navy, they're not allowing anybody near that area of that volcano, right? But it's active. It's not dead. And they're going to start reporting on this because people they can't ignore that the boiling waters and the steam that will start coming up from this thing. That's going to introduce this entire that will set off lots of underwater volcanoes and surface volcanoes. We're going to have to deal with an ash environment. I at least thought we'd have another 2 or 3 years on that. I don't think so. And that's coming fairly quickly. By the way, when the ash increases in the air, it will obstruct how airplanes fly. In fact, it'll obstruct everything. Storms will change. The sky will turn to a reddish hue over the years, over the days and years. But we're going to deal with this for many years, many years. And it's finally waking up, right? And concerning that comment about the 19,000 volcanoes, they suspect even more than that are in the oceans. My goodness, I have to go into detail on that because they put a lot of money and effort into identifying deep water volcanoes. They have found systems that should not exist. It just shouldn't exist. And underneath the waters, it is incredibly active with volcanoes. If that were topside, everybody would think that Jesus would have to come tonight because nobody would make it tomorrow. There's that much activity in the oceans.
So we're seeing these events that are happening now, just like right now, a 7.7 earthquake while we're on the air, which is quite extraordinary. We talked about the fact that there was like 5 solar flares that were hitting the Earth. I didn't even get to tell anybody about this tonight. I talked about it yesterday, that the sun was very volatile. There was tremendous eruptions, you know that, and things were happening. But I guess today, since this afternoon, there had been some more pretty powerful solar flares. They were supposed to just be glancing blows. But anytime I see a solar flare that's an X class, or right at an X class, and even if it's a glancing blow, it could create a major earthquake. And then I said this 2 days ago. I said, guys, in the next 48 hours, look for a major quake, something big, a mega quake. And here we are, 7.7. I'm not an expert in it. It's just that we've been around long enough to know. And what you're saying is, this is nothing. We're going to see some 8s and 9s. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, we live in the time now where things are going to be very different. I mean, look at the trending. How many 7.0s and higher have we had in the last couple of months?
Unbelievable.
We've not seen that type trending before, ever. We've not seen that before.
No.
And it's only getting worse. It's getting worse. So, but thank God they've not hit in these populated areas yet. But how long will God's grace, right, or His mercy, not His grace, how long will His mercy endure? I think that's for us to see. That's for us to consider. I think a lot of people are trying to make up within their minds, is this really it or not, right?
Right.
But Pastor Paul, that's why your ministry is so important, because prophetic writings show us the season that we're in. We're in that season right now. Things are going to escalate to the point where nobody will have to ask what time we're in. People will just then take a position for or against it. But we live in a time when the toll on life is going to be real, and people have to get themselves ready, because when it starts hitting in populated areas, when these events take, millions of lives, that's going to be very tough for people to deal with if they never thought it was true in the first place.
I mean,
right?
Just imagine
it's going to be tough.
Or massive volcanoes that kill 1 million, 2 million people at one time. That is devastating to even comprehend.
That's right.
And when it starts to happen more than once, I think nobody's going to ask, well, maybe we're in the end times. I mean, everyone's going to know we are.
They're going to start becoming angry.
Yeah, they will.
Maybe that's why in Revelation all those people hated God. You have to know God to hate Him. You can't hate a God you don't know.
Wow.
So somehow these people, they blamed everything on the living God, which means they knew about the prophecies. Because why would they blame these events on Him? Which tells me they were probably part of the church at one time, and they fell away.
Yep. And the Bible says, except there come a great falling away, the end won't come. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the prophecies also. And so, Mike, hey, tomorrow, we've got a big day. I'm going to be interviewing you. We're going to record two 1 hour or so recordings for this webinar. And I'm just going to ask you, because when Heidi told me that not only did you agree to do the 2 interviews, but you agreed to also do the 2 live panels, one when we're in San Diego and one when we're in Honolulu. With a live audience. We're just gonna pipe you in by phone and let you participate. But tomorrow, folks, Mike's gonna be interviewed by me, and this is what he's gonna talk about. for the webinar. The first one is paranormal programs within the government, including DARPA programs, and maybe not only our government, but also maybe Russia, China, and others. And the second thing he's going to talk about is mind manipulation and consciousness, brainwaves, mind reading, interpreting. Mike, is this going to be? I mean, am I going to get shocked tomorrow?
You might.
But
I'll tell you something. It's something that's active always. It's always active.
Have we advanced considerably?
Sure. You'd be surprised what is sanctioned, what is used, and how people's responses to events are largely pre-programmed.
Wow.
I think you'd be shocked.
I look forward to tomorrow, to getting that down, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with these people in this webinar. So appreciate it, Mike. Mike, thank you for all your effort. We're in this time it is, we have to work together. I think God's put you and I together with all these wonderful people out here for such a time as this.
It's an honor, and it certainly is needed.
It is an honor.
It certainly is needed.
The honor is mine, believe me. Thank you, Mike, tonight.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
God bless. Amen.
All right.
Mike from the world.